What's the word, y'all? Every single playoff series has played at least one game, and I'm here to talk all things playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. My original schedule was to drop a playoff prediction video the day before the actual playoffs, but things came up, so I couldn't record that video. But now I can. So I do still have my original predictions. None of that have really changed, but I will be talking about some of the things I saw in the game ones around here. But I will be honest with you. Some of these games I got close to like no eye time with in the live setting. I did watch some condensed versions, watch some highlights and stuff, but this weekend was a very eventful one for me. Became a father, still very weird to say aloud. So obviously, you know, we're in a hospital for 82 hours or whatever it was, and you got this tiny human you got to care for. Basketball was one of the last things on my priority list, but I did get around to watching at least a little bit. Like I said, my overall predictions for series were not swayed based on the one singular game, but I just want to talk some hoops with y'all, baby. Get back in the swing of things. All right, so I'm actually going to start off with today's games because those are the ones that's on my mind. Like Chris Paul just took over fourth quarter, and I'm super excited about that. Suns in 5 is my prediction for that. It's not a lot to really say about this series other than the Suns are just a more complete, better basketball team. And you saw a lot of that in the first half of this, where Pelicans put up 32 points in the first half. The defense was locked in. In the third quarter, the Pels made that run, though. It turned into like from a 20-point game to a single-digit game. You got some CJ, you got some Brandon Ingram, and then Chris Paul was like, oh, I'm going to do my thing and take over this game. I love the players. We talked about them extensively after their playing games. I love a lot of the players on the Pelicans, but I don't believe that they have enough firepower to make this a super interesting series. But I do give them one game mostly because they do have a bunch of bucket getters. I can see Brandon Ingram having a 35-piece, and then CJ McCollum also having 30, and then Jonas Valanciunas also has a really big game, and boom, they just stole the game. But overall, the likelihood of this series going any other direction other than the Suns is like 2%, it feels like. Let's get the Bulls one out of the way. People are like, oh, this got the feel of a good old-fashioned 90s game. No, it didn't. Just because the score is low don't mean it feel like the 90s. In the 90s, they still hit shots. Nobody could do anything today other than Giannis. Giannis looked like a guy that was an NBA player going into the YMCA. And now if you look at the stat line, he finished with only 27, but I promise you it was the most dominant 27 we've seen in a very long time. I wanted this one so very bad. You know what I'm saying? I got my C Reyes shirt on. I put my daughter in a shirt that say, watching the Bulls with daddy or something like that. It was fire. I'm like, oh, first playoff game in half a decade. Let's go Chicago. Even though I believe that majority of the people on panels are like, Bucks and four, which I completely understand. The Bulls haven't beat the Bucks in the last 13 times when Giannis is playing, which is a crazy statistic in itself. And then on the broadcast, they said something like the Bulls are 1-18 in the last 19 games against the Bucks. I'm like, bro, we get it. You feel me? People understand the Bulls can't beat the Bucks. We get it. You don't have to keep rubbing it in. So my initial prediction was like, can I get the Bulls to win one game? This was the game, y'all. This was the game they should have won. The Bucks struggle in game ones. It's just a fact. They even talked about it on the broadcast. The only reason they won last year's game one is because Chris Middleton hit a buzzer beater. They struggle in game ones. And both of these teams, a lot of the teams you saw like some somewhat bad basketball because a lot of these teams haven't played in a week because we had to wait for the play-in, then wait for travel. We got to do all of this stuff. And you could tell the Bulls' big three, god awful. 24%, 33%, 32%. That's bad. But if you look on the other side, the Bucks big two or the other two other than Giannis, 30%, 37%. This was the game. If there was going to be a game for the Bulls to win, this was the one. I don't see a scenario where Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday also continue to shoot 30% from the field. But you can also see on the flip side, you don't see a scenario where DeMar DeRozan shoots 24%. Or you see a situation where the starting center is shooting 33% for the Bulls. I can see that happening again. I can. Because I've seen it happen a couple times this season or something similar. And exactly in his first playoff game, there was a lot of nerves for this Bulls team. And they have this reputation against good teams. Obviously, everybody knows statistics because StatMuse tweets it every damn day when the Bulls lose a game. They struggle against good teams, like really, really struggle. Historically bad against good teams. And in those games, they always struggle out the gate. And they did that. I think it started off 9-0 run. I'm live tweeting games again. It's so much fun because I believe that majority of people understand when I'm joking and when I'm not. And I say majority of people, but because it can't be everybody. This just felt like a one that they could win, but they started off very, very slow. The nerves are probably an all-time high. You got to think about it. Some of these players have never played playoff basketball at all. And Zach LaVine just broke a record of, or I guess not the record. He was the longest active NBA player to not appear in the playoffs. It's over. I hope that next game we get more Ayo Dosunmu because he played a big part in this season. And I know for the second half of the season, he wasn't as good as the first half. Regardless, he provides some defense. And I think that the defense for the Bulls was pretty solid today. Again, a lot of people were just missing shots too. But I thought the defense was better than what I think a lot of people expected it to be. I would love Patrick Williams to not pass up wide open 3-pointers anymore. Just let it fly, homie. Nobody else on the team was hitting shots, so I'm not mad at you if you shot one more extra one. We shot 19% from 3. 19%. 32% from the field as a team. But my initial thing was Bucks at 5. But since the Bulls didn't win this one, where it felt like the Bucks were bad, I don't know, bro. I'm going to keep my original thing, but I would not be surprised if it was a real-life Bucks info. Probably the best, not probably, the best game of the day was Boston versus the Brooklyn Nets. Wow, wow, wow. I think I've mentioned this a few times on the channel and on the podcast. This has been my most anticipated series because we got two teams that I honestly believe have enough talent to make the big run, and we're getting it in the first round, a 2-7 nonetheless in the first round. And like I said, I'm somewhat of a Nets skeptic. I do believe they have the talent to do it, but would they be able to do it? I'm always a bit iffy about that. And this game, they ended up losing on dramatic fashion. What a possession for the Boston Celtics. Shout out to Ime for not calling timeout. I love when coaches understand that their players run off these things, and like, they had been running with the Brooklyn Nets all day long. He's like, let them run his break. Let them run his break. And listen, Draymond Green made this tweet during the game or after the game, and me and the homies literally said the exact same thing as we were watching. Hold on, let me find this tweet. So his tweet says, and there's the difference in this Celtics team. Last year, Marcus Smart would have taken that shot. Ime got him to buy in and be the Marcus Smart everyone loved out of Oklahoma State. Beautiful. Looking like a true point guard again. That's what made him special. And me and the homies, of course, we be live watching a lot of these games. We all said something along the lines of, I cannot believe Marcus Smart did not take that shot. Not just because it's Marcus Smart, but considering the, you know how much awareness you have to see two people sprinting at you. And you obviously know that the time is going down. To see two people sprinting at you and to make the extra pass knowing damn well you might have 1.2 seconds to get that pass off and get it up. And again, it is Marcus Smart, too. I mean, he was having a very good game. For him not to let it fly, it's just beautiful basketball. Tatum said afterwards, hey, that was just a layup for me. I ain't really have to do much. This was a dog fight. This was a great game, and I cannot wait to get 6 more of these because my prediction has been Boston and 7. And I know a lot of people pick Brooklyn. I'm not mad at you. Brooklyn had the talent. We saw today Kyrie Irving basically be a perfect basketball player on the offense side of the ball. Defense is always going to be iffy with Kyrie, but I can't even be mad at him if you're giving your team about 40 points on 60% shooting. I can't be mad if you take some possessions off, but I will be mad if you take possessions off if it is the last 2 possessions of the game because Jaylen Brown got a very easy bucket late in this one. In that last possession, I know they were throwing doubles at everybody because they're trying to either get the ball out of the hands, make them force a turnover, make them think that the time is running out enough that they got to jack up a shot. But the defense for the Brooklyn Nets down the stretch was not as good as you want it to be, obviously. Bruce Brown did a lot of yapping in these interviews before this series started. Didn't do a damn thing. He actually, in his 36 minutes, he felt somewhat of a liability, which is crazy because for the last 3 months, he has been very, very good for them. And listen, I saw some people who had a nerve. Oh my God, I would never say something like, I felt like I sounded like Stephen A. Smith, and I would never want to do that. People who have the nerve to say, I don't know if Ben should come back. Hello? I love Bruce Brown, bro. I've been on the Bruce Brown bandwagon since Detroit. I understand how good he can be. But in a game like this is where you need Ben Simmons. The defense was skeptics. The defense was bad. The defense was bad, and the rebounding was worse. Brucey, love him. He's a plus rebounder, a 6'4" guard, power forward center. But Ben would help on that glass, and they let Al Horford do his thing on that glass. Daniel Tice was not bad on the glass. I cannot believe there are people that are really believing that Ben Simmons would not be an upgrade over the 4 minutes you got of Kessler Evers. No disrespect to the Rook, but like taking a couple minutes away from Brucey, taking some minutes away from Drummond, or even Clax, who had a good game, but he just can't hit free throws. It's crazy for people to think that won't be the case. And I also would love to see some LaMarcus Aldridge minutes in game 2. I'm not saying he got to play 40, but I would love to see what Ime decides to do with LaMarcus in the game. He's slower. He's worse on defense than a lot of the players on the team, but his little mid-range jump shots, offensive firepower could help a little bit. Open the game up a little bit more for Kyrie. If there is any silver lining for the Brooklyn Nets, they lost on the buzzer beater in the game where Kevin Durant might have had his worst playoff basketball game of all time. One of his worst games of all time. So there is some bright spots like, hey, we were in this game where we really only had Kyrie Irving going against the entire city of Boston, literally the whole city of Boston. I'm still rocking with my initial pick, which was Boston in 7. Did I tell you that I'm just a dude with a microphone, so you might disagree with everything I say, but that's completely okay? Cool. The last game for today was this Heat versus Hawks game where I probably got 5 minutes of watch time on. And it was mostly because we were getting discharged from the hospital. You don't care about that type of stuff. So I didn't get to watch this game. But when I saw this box score and saw that Trae Young was 1 for 12 with 6 turnovers, and that Bogdan Bogdanovic was 0 for 8, I almost lost my mind. You cannot tell me these two dudes shot 1 of 20 from the field. You could not have convinced me that was even possible. And I know the Heat defense is one of the best in the league, and I commend them for that. But I didn't even think it was going to be 8 points for Trae Young is wild. Him scoring under 10 points in a playoff game is wild. And I did watch the first 2 minutes of it maybe. And him and Jimmy Butler got into each other's face. And people on Twitter was like, oh, I love villain Trae Young. And low-key, I do too. But the villain got packed up today. If he a villain, the movie ended with him getting arrested. It's over with. You know what I'm saying? He's in Gotham Asylum right now. Kevin Knox, give Kevin Knox real minutes. Shout out to the Miami Heat, man. Debo going out there and hitting 8 threes is crazy. I doubt Debo is going to do that again. He is a very good player, obviously, one of the greater shooters in the league, even though this was somewhat of a down year for him. I don't expect him to hit 8 more next game, but who really knows? Maybe Debo just found that spot. I don't expect Trae Young and Bogey to shoot 1 for 20. And I think that the travel thing was big for them too. I think they got into Miami at 3:30 a.m. the day before and a lot of stuff. And I don't know. My initial pick was Miami in 6 because I still do believe that Atlanta has enough to maybe steal a game or 2, but not having a Clint Capella is real rough. But I still believe they can win a game or 2, but regardless, Miami's probably going to win that series. All right, let's get to yesterday's slate of games. Ooh, yesterday's slate of games was kind of solid, bro. And I'm going in the reverse order, too. The Warriors win 123-107. And you know who we got to talk about. You know, the Splash nephew, the boy that took Steph Curry's starting spot in this play. Steph Curry had to come off the bench in like a decade. And they were cool with him not even having a good game because Jordan Poole is that guy. And Klay Thompson hitting some of his first shots of the game after missing playoff basketball since 2019, bro. It's so wild. There's so many stories here. My initial thing here says Warriors in 6. I did believe that Jokic can wheel them to a couple victories. And even Draymond Green said after the game that he wouldn't put past that Jokic might have a 40-point triple-double next game because he's angry at the performance from his team. But I like the way Steve Kerr and Draymond Green decided to do this thing, bro. I love the way they did because, listen, there's not a lot of people in the league that can stop a guy like Jokic, right? Draymond can slow bro down, and he did. They packed up this paint, and they realized that the supporting cast was Monte Morris. Will Barton had a really good game for his team. His defense was good. He hit his shots. But Monte Morris, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, and Jeff Green, okay, we going to let y'all try to beat us. And if y'all do, perfect. That's okay. But the likelihood of that happening is very low. So we're going to pack this paint. Jokic has not hit a three-pointer in like a month, it feels like. He's a good three-point shooter, but in the last month, I think he's shooting 15% from 3. He can't hit those. So they packed the paint and was like, Jokic, if you're going to beat us, you got to get super physical. And Draymond Green is all about his physicality. And they had a good defensive game plan. And then they had Jordan Poole turning into the player that he is. They actually had the top 3 candidates for most improved player come out today. So surprised that Jordan Poole didn't make top 3. I understand. Even my own personal ballot had like 7 different players on it. So I understand why, some people can't make the cut. But performances like this is why I'm just like enamored by the amount of effort and work that went into Jordan Poole, whether it be him by himself or the Warriors organization as a whole. He has blossomed, bro. He was in the G. He was in the G last year. Think about that. He was in the G League last year, and he's starting in the playoff game and dropping 30, confident 32, memeing the whole way. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be a lot of people's favorite player based off that alone. Whenever the camera's on him, he got a face. He's making a face. You know what I'm saying? And you got to love that. So I'm still going with the Warriors grand scheme. Oh, man. Let's talk about this 4-5 matchup out east. And this is 76ers versus Raptors. This one right here was a tough one to make a prediction about. Mostly because I thought that the Toronto Raptors matched up very well against the 76ers. You know what I'm saying? Everybody on their team is like 6'8", massive wingspans. They get in the passing lanes. I think Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet both were top 5 in deflections. They got Scotty B. They got Pascal. And they got, even though they don't have a single person that can stop Joel Embiid, they have so many different looks that they could throw at them. But even with that being said, they still, the 76ers still have Joel Embiid. And though James Harden might not have the step that he had 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he still can play at a high level, and he did that. So I saw a lot of people making I don't even want to call it a hipster pick, because it's more than that. Because the Raptors are actually a really good team. There's a reason it's a 4-5 matchup, so it's not a hipster pick if you thought or you think that the Raptors will win this series. But I still went with the team that I thought had the better top-end talent. And that would be the 76ers. But I did go all the way to 7 with it. I don't know if it will be 7 because now Gary Trent is questionable or doubtful. Scotty Barnes tweaked that ankle, and oh my God, I hated to see that, bro. Because I did believe this was going to be a series that's going to be pretty solid, but it didn't end up being. Let me look at my notes, because I actually watched this game in its entirety. One of the big things, this is in my notes. Look at me, Kenny. And this is not anything new. If you listen to any podcast, it probably says something similar. In order for the Raptors to win this series, they have to destroy the 76ers when Joel Embiid is on the bench, and they didn't do that. Actually, when Joel Embiid was on the bench, the Raptors lost the game by 4 total points, and that cannot be the case. Any team that's going to beat the 76ers in a series has to win the Joel Embiid-less minutes, because that's when they're at the most dominant. Obviously, he's an MVP caliber player. That's when they're at the most dominant, and they don't have the extreme amount of depth of some of the other teams that they will be facing. So when Joel Embiid hits that bench, we got to play our best basketball, because that is the only way. I believe that the series against Toronto, where Kawhi Leonard hit the shot, Joel Embiid he was positive in his minutes. Whenever Joel Embiid was on the floor, they were good. They won the matchups. It was the minutes when he wasn't on the floor. And I think that might be the case in the Atlanta series too. Regardless, the way you beat the 76ers is dogging them when Joel Embiid was not on the court, and they didn't do that in game number 1. We got to give a lot of love to Tyrese Maxey, bro. You got, and we're going to talk about this game next. We got Anthony Edwards, Jordan Poole, Tyrese Maxey. It's just so many young players, just like, and I don't know how many of these dudes are going to blossom into superstars. It's kind of irrelevant, but so many people that are just so very, very talented at the game of basketball. And I'm missing some names too. I'm sure there were some people that were tonight that's not on the back of my mind that are young that killed it today. Like, you know what? I'm not even going to waste the brain power. Just, you know that there's talent in this league. Tyrese Maxey was electric in this one, bro, no matter what it was. And one of the main reasons why I had him as one of my top 7 most improved player candidates is that he turned into one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire NBA out of nowhere. If you look at his pre-draft report, it was like, he's cool, but can he hit threes? And it only took him a season to figure it out. Yeah, he can. Whether it be catch or shoot, on the move, didn't matter. And I just like that anytime the ball is rebounded by his team, he is shot out of a cannon. He is down the court. He is running. And that type of energy is electric. And I think that when people were predicting the series, and again, we only saw game number 1, so anything can happen. I believe that people were over complicating the Matisse Thybulle thing. Matisse Thybulle obviously is a great defender, and he can help your team out when he's on the floor. But he played 18 minutes, and he ain't really do much today or yesterday. So him not being able to travel to Toronto for those 2 games might hurt, but it might not. It legit might not. We talk about the playoffs here, where the best of the best are probably going to get 40 minutes, especially if it's a close game. They might get 44, 45 minutes, depending on which game it is. So, could it hurt? Hell yeah, but it didn't hurt in game number 1. We even got some B-ball Paul minutes. I'd love to see that. Even though in those 10 minutes he had 4 fouls. I still gonna stick with my original pick, which is 76ers in 7. And man, it's unfortunate that we get to this point, and in game 1, Thaddeus Young gets injured. Like I said, Gary Trent and Scotty Barnes all get injured. It's super, super unfortunate, because we won't get the full experience of what this series could have been. You know what I'm saying? Because of that. But I hope that maybe these are 1-game injuries. If that, only time will tell. Timberwolves with the upset. Oh boy. Did the higher seed win every single game? Other than this one this week, the higher seed won every single game. NBA playoffs is mid. We get 1 upset out of 8 games. That's crazy, bro. Okay, so Minnesota Timberwolves came out to play in the grindhouse. They was the one doing the grinding. Pause. They looked very, very good. I don't like giving excuses for teams that lose, but like the Memphis Grizzlies are similar to some of the other teams when I say that they haven't played basketball and 10 days, like a week's time plus a little bit. You feel me? You could definitely see that. My original thing in my notes said Grizzlies in 6, and I'm going to stick by that even though they lost game 1. This is a perfect storm for a guy like Anthony Edwards, who has been incredible in his first playoff game, and I'm counting the play-in as a post. In his first postseason, he has looked incredible, which is great. Karl-Anthony Towns with a big comeback after, of course, we know the type of stinker that he put up in the play-in game. He showed the world, listen, that ain't the real version of me. This is really me. And having a guy like Malik Beasley come off the bench and hit his shots, and having Jaden McDaniels hit his shots just increases the amount of value to a guy like Anthony Edwards, who could just legitimately take over games. You feel me? Who was it? Patrick Beverly? Somebody on this team told Anthony Edwards that his ceiling, somebody said that his ceiling is Michael Jordan. And because of that, everybody got all these photoshops of Anthony Edwards as Michael Jordan. And you know what? I don't hate it. Why can't he be Jordan? With a little bit, I can't even say with a little bit more swag, because though Jordan wasn't like a flashy, talkative dude in the media, there's a lot of swag behind Michael Jordan, bro. I'm keeping it a buck. The Grizzlies had a guy, Steven Adams, who had been a very impactful player for them this season, basically be non-existent. He was non-existent in this matchup. And actually, the only reason he played 24 minutes is because Jared Jackson Jr. was in foul trouble. You know what I'm saying? Coach Taylor Jenkins found out very early, this might not be a good matchup for Steven Adams. So let's yank him and let Jaren run the full 5. And then he got into some foul trouble. He ended up with 7 blocks, was cool. He got yammed on a couple times. But I don't believe that the performance that we got from Desmond, the performance we got from DeAnthony, the performance we got from Jaren as far as shooting the ball is going to happen more than maybe one more time in the series. But I got to show a lot of love to Minnesota, bro. I didn't even realize I followed so many Minnesota Timberwolves fans on my Twitter. It's either I follow a lot or the ones that I do follow is just retweeting everything, because I saw nothing but Minnesota Timberwolves memes and GIFs on the timeline. And I didn't hate it. I got a lot of love for the city. Never been there before, but when you think about a franchise that's been through turmoil, that's been through 6 flips, firing the GM right before the season started, trading away players for less than the value that they probably worth, and for them to be in the spot in the playoffs and winning a game where they were the underdog is a dub. But you know what? It's not completely crazy. Because legit, I did see some people, and I'm talking about the higher regards, some ESPN writers or whether it's Bleacher Report, pick the Minnesota Timberwolves to win this series, which would be super intriguing and which will be a failed season for the Grizz. You understand why. I ain't got to tell you why first round elimination for the number 2 seed would be a failed season, right? Cool. Even though you did have progression of Ja like that. But like, you were a playoff team last year, and if you lose in the first round, you ain't really. Anyway, I think those are all my predictions. I'm excited to like actually be able to sit down and watch tomorrow's slate of games like front to back. Sleep schedule is so wild. I know it's been 2 days since baby Aves was born, but like sleep schedule is so crazy that maybe I'm not watching these games front to back, because I might be in this chair dozing off, bro. That's how it be. But I appreciate all the support. Let me know in the comment section. Was your initial prediction on the series changed after watching game number 1? Let me know. I'll see y'all soon. All right, y'all. So it's the next day, and I realized that I did not talk about Dallas versus Utah, which is funny because if you ask some Utah fans or you ask some Mavericks fans, they're going to say Kenny don't like talking about us. And the fact that I completely forgot to talk about their series and trying to deep dive into the playoffs is ironic, because I don't have any ill will against any organization. Game number 1 wasn't very fun. It was another one of those games where nobody can hit a shot, and not having Luka just completely ruined the fun for me. Originally, I was like, man, okay, let's say Luka loses one game. He doesn't play one game. I still feel confident saying Dallas in 6. And I feel like a lot of people have turned an eye on Utah because I think a lot of people are just ready for them to make those changes, whether it is Rudy, whether it is Donovan or Mike Conley. We've seen this version of the Utah Jazz for like 4 years now. I think a lot of people just wanted to end in the first round so we can have a shakeup in the league. That's not the way I'm thinking when I'm predicting the series, though. I would love to see a little shakeup, and even if they keep in Donovan or Rudy Gobert, I would love to see them have shape up, whether it be the rest of the starters, the bench, regardless. But when Luka went down with that injury, I was thinking to myself, okay, it's a calf strain, and those can take like 3 weeks. And that's coming from some of the doctors I follow on Twitter, these sports doctors I follow on Twitter, 3 weeks. So that means that he might be back for game 2. So when I made my prediction of Dallas in 6, it was mostly because I thought that Luka might be back for game 2. And well, they said that he's questionable / doubtful, and that completely changes some things. Can I see a world where, the Mavericks have Luka come back in game 3 and they use the last 6 games to win 4? Sure. But the Utah Jazz are still a very good basketball team. This is not a series that's like a 1-8 matchup where even being down in 2 games is not that much of a deal. It actually is a deal, because the Utah Jazz, as much as weird they are, they're still a solid team. They're still a good team. They got Donovan Mitchell, a playoff performer. Game 1, Bogdanovich came out to play. I will say, though, I did watch condensed version of this game. And Rudy Gobert has to be better offensively. Something that we've said for half of a decade at this point. The defense for Rudy was great this one. I can say that with confidence. Of course, I'm not expecting him to stay in front of Spencer Dinwiddie full time or even Jalen Brunson full time. But as far as being the epicenter of this defense and holding it down low, he did that. And they actually destroyed the rebound battle in this, which is a big part of this win. They still need him to be better on offense because I saw trending on Twitter a clip where he had Jalen Brunson on his back and nobody gave him the ball. And it's partially his fault because they don't trust him with that ball when he has a 5'11 dude on him. He's got to be better. Anyway, I haven't changed my prediction for any series going into this, so I'm going to keep my initial prediction, but it don't feel good after game 1 and knowing that Luka probably won't play game 2 and even is still questionable for game 3. It's just the worst possible timing. It's just unfortunate timing for one of the best in the league, All-NBA first-team player Luka Doncic to go down and maybe another first-round exit, which would be bad.